Today I'm at a very interesting place. I'm at Bombay Sweet Shop. Bombay Sweet Shop is a new age Mithai brand in Bombay. It comes from the house of Bombay Canteen, O Pedro and Papa's. It is one of my favorite Mithai shops and I want you to discover Bombay Sweet Shop along with me, and I'm in conversation with Sameer, founder of Bombay Sweet Shop. Thanks Sameer for doing this. Welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
In our show, Sameer, we talk to exciting entrepreneurs like you who are building legendary food brands. And after having built a bunch of brands that you have, what made you start Bombay Sweet Shop? You know, at a time where all kinds of patisseries are cropping up in all cities, Western dessert is on fire, if I may say. Are you going back and reinventing the age-old mithai? How did this happen?
So it's a little bit of a long story, so bear with me. But our journey kind of started in 2015 when we opened the Bombay Canteen. And and the whole idea with Bombay Canteen was how do you reimagine Indian food?
Yes.
And, if you think back a decade ago, the kind of restaurants we went to, you either went for Asian food or Conti food. Indian food was not really sort of...
Yeah, it was not cool.
It was not cool, exactly. And I think in the last decade, we've really sort of we've loved sort of creating and recreating what Indian cuisine can be. I think so. Our genesis as Hunger Inc., as our company is known, started there. And as we were growing, our second restaurant was O Pedro, which opened in 2017. And at that point, Yash and I and the team started asking ourselves the question, like, do we see ourselves sort of really creating more and more restaurants of this nature, or is there something else we can do? But the thought behind recreating Indian traditions, Indian culinary traditions, was very much rooted in our psyche at that point. And what ended up happening at that point was Yash was actually traveling to New York. He was going via Paris, going via Istanbul. And what was interesting was he'd never been to either of these countries, but he kept picking up food items at the airport which he would like feel that he'd visited the country. And that kind of sparked the idea that why not do something like that for Indian cuisine. And at that point, we looked at condiments, we looked at sauces, we looked at a whole bunch of other things. But eventually, I think during his trip to via Istanbul airport, he was seeing what was happening to baklava and Turkish delight. And that kind of sparked the idea that just the way Indian food was a white sort of white canvas back in the day, Indian sweets represented that same sort of area, so to speak. And that kind of sort of set us off in that journey because it was very much in our sort of area of expertise to be able to sort of look at traditions and reimagine them. It set us off on a journey of almost 2 years of traveling the length and breadth of India.
Wow, must have been exciting.
It was really exciting, and more importantly, so at that point, Chef Floyd Cardoz, who was our third co-founder, was there. He would always say, unless you don't take time to understand tradition, you can't innovate. So Chef Girish came on board at that point in 2018, I remember. We spent 2 years traveling to all parts of India to see how is mithai created, how are Indian sweets created. And today now you sit in a reimagined version of an Indian mithai shop. And that's where we are at.
And so reinventing mithai was a journey for you, but Bombay Sweet Shop also seems like an ode to Bombay, the city that you live in. So how are these two things merging, Bombay and sweets from all over the country?
For us, I think Bombay has always represented this melting pot, as a city. I'm originally from Lucknow in Delhi.
Oh, wow.
Yash is from Pune. Chef Girish is from Manipal. Floyd was from Bombay, but it was always a melting pot, right? And to us, Bombay is where things come to get recreated. So, which is why, our love for recreation and the why we love the city as well. There's always something exciting, and the energy to the city has been always amazing, which we love to draw inspiration from.
So you mentioned, Turkish delight, baklavas, and all kinds of food available at different airports, And I also noticed that the packaging that you're creating is almost very souvenirs, So do you have that in mind where you end up doing, gifting as a very, very big thing? Also, not only for gifting within the customers of the city, but also tourists picking it up and taking it back to their countries.
Absolutely. That was the original thought, that imagine that we would exist at airports across India and people would be able to pick us up. But the packaging was something we spent a lot of time thinking about, because at the end of the day, unlike a restaurant where the food is cooked 100 meters from you, then brought to you and eaten, the true sort of delight here and the magic here happens when someone opens the bag or opens the box. And I think we got some really good advice at that time when we were opening, that focusing on color, focusing on the vibrancy, and we worked with some amazing design partners in the form of Please See
Nice.
to really create the range that you see around us.
Yeah, beautiful. Looks beautiful.
And the idea really is that it can become something that
Yeah.
is a great gift, which is a massive part of what people use us for, but
Yes.
also when you take it home and you want to enjoy that sort of indulgence, it's there for you as well.
Brilliant. And what are your top sellers? Like talk about the products. I see a bunch of very interesting products in the store. Talk us through the product range.
So, chocolate barks. So everything has a genesis in Indian Mithai. Right?
Yeah. Chocolate barks too?
Chocolate barks too. So the middle layer, which mimics butterscotch, is actually inspired by Sohan halwa.
Ah, interesting.
And it's coated with dark chocolate, a little bit of sea salt, and roasted almonds. We can't make enough of that.
Yeah.
We just recently launched what we call Indie Bites, which is actually an amazing version of Kaju Katli, as we call it, but
Wow.
it's got a 55% dark chocolate ganache on top, and it basically is a small bite of heaven, in my opinion, where you get sort of the richness of both the chocolate and the kaju sort of meeting each other, and it's a great sort of bite to have together. And of course, we have a whole range of other products which are like the gulab jamun churros or the rasmalai fruit custards that we do. We do a bunch of fresh products, and of course, what is a mithai shop without namkeen?
Yeah.
So you can have piri piri sort of.
So also marrying some Western flavors.
Western flavor. See, the thing about our guests and consumers today is that they want something that's relevant to them today.
Yeah.
That's our journey since Bombay Canteen. Like, how do you make traditions relevant and sort of make them our own as of today's day and age? And I think that's been the beauty of each one of the things that we've created, including Bombay Sweet Shop, where people truly get to see how they can eat what was traditional, but in a way that they enjoy it today.
Yeah, and I noticed that now if I may call it, like becoming a house of brands, right?
It is.
And what started as Bombay Canteen and O Pedro and Papa's now is we have Bombay Sweet Shop. So, did you always imagine it to be a multi-brand setup? Like, how did you end up being a food entrepreneur, you and Yash? Yes.
Both of us have slightly different journeys. I think I grew up in a home obsessed with food, so very much sort of went down that path, although sort of veered towards banking for a few years and then realized the folly of my ways. Yash actually came through a very traditional sort of hotel management sort of path, and both of us were classmates at Cornell. That's how we met. And we joke around as the two desi kids that someday we'll go back and do something.
Did you try your hand at food in US? Like any entrepreneurship journey with
not entrepreneurship, but I worked with some amazing. Floyd was my boss there, and he helped open. So him along in a company called Union Square Hospitality Group, which also runs Shake Shack, helped open a restaurant in New York back in 2012, and that truly was an eye-opening experience for me personally. So, and I think like Yash moved to Singapore at that time after Cornell, and both of us were able to bring a combined set of experiences along with Floyd's deep experience around food to set up what we have today.
Yeah. And from a multi-brand journey point of view, like what made you create different formats?
I think at each stage being curious about what's happening around us. I think it's very easy to say that you open one brand, now like take it 10 kilometers away and open another one, right? But to us, like, we're always curious about the behavior we see around us. Like Bombay Canteen, O Pedro are high on service, high on experience, and just because you take them a few kilometers away doesn't mean that it's got the same variables attached to it. Eventually scale, and eventually we're ambitious and we wanted to do many things, and eventually scale is a function of process, and the reason for sort of veering towards the idea of products was that we could really control the consistency as well as the experience someone would have because we're producing it centrally. So today you're sitting in our Bandra store, which is a reimagined version of a Mithai shop. And here all the products you see are centrally made, and obviously some are freshly made here as well. It's a mix of both those. The biggest challenge for us is how do we keep creating these in a way that no preservatives are used. It's a fresh experience for everyone.
So all your products have no preservatives?
No preservatives.
That's interesting.
And which makes it challenging as well from a supply chain perspective, right? So, and it doesn't help that everything has to be kept at different temperatures, etc. So it's been an interesting challenge to try to figure that out over the last 4 years over here.
Got it. And how was pandemic for you, like for the business? Was it tough, or did you embrace new channels like online or something?
I think the start of the pandemic was obviously terrible. We lost Floyd very early on during that process. And Bombay Sweet Shop had just opened. And I think we started picking up the pieces early in 2020, and the way we look at it is Bombay Sweet Shop hadn't at least launched. It literally launched 15 days before the pandemic hit in full force. It turned into be a silver lining for us because Mithai and sweets and namkeens was something people always enjoyed at home.
Yes.
We actually very quickly pivoted. We quickly opened a Shopify website and we were off to the races in July 2020.
Wow, nice.
And today, like, we ship all over the country. We have multiple dark stores across Bombay and slowly growing. We are opening more stores like the one we are sitting on. Yeah. And so it's been a really interesting journey where I think, like you rightly said, we embraced the digital era at that point. But now continuing to be curious about the way behavior is changing now 4 years later as well, right? Like, it's not the same way people are consuming, especially in food.
Yes.
And so how do you constantly keep up with that and build a playbook that will actually continue being sustainable is sort of the problem.
And are there any cuisines or formats that you're, new cuisines, new formats that you're thinking of?
Right now we just opened Papa's about 3 months ago, which
Talk to us about Papa's. What
Papa's is actually Chef Hussein's playground is the way I call it. Like it's again, so I'll tell you a little bit both about Papa's and Veronica's and how it came about. So it's not too far from where we are sitting. It's in 80-year-old historic bakery which we got an opportunity to take over. And ever since Chef Floyd passed, we really wanted to celebrate his memory, his love for bread, his love for fine dining. So if you go there, in the ground floor is Veronica's, which is a reimagined version of a New York deli but in Bandra. So you get sandwiches, coffee, it's a wine bar by night. And on top it's a 12-seat sort of chef's counter, which truly has no rules. And the no rules means Hussein's cooking whatever he feels like, and you are beholden to him for those 3-4 hours that you come. Like I always say, food is the new music. You come to be entertained now. And
it's
how do we create that environment in which you're truly having fun is what Papa's is all about.
And from your competition point of view, of course there are this traditional mithai walas and some of them are still very, very great. Do you see any relevant competition coming up in like branded sweets and new age sweets as a category, or any favorites that you may have?
I think what's interesting now is the way we look at it is, since 2020 many new age Indian sweet brands have opened up. In fact, traditional shops are also premiumizing and doing things in an interesting way. Like I think there's that age-old saying, all boats rise with the tide. And I think what's amazing is everyone is sort of creating a market where people are becoming more aware and more attuned to products such as ours. I think if I had to look at things which are really interesting in India, right, like something like Manam chocolates, which has come out of the Almond House team in Hyderabad. I think it's amazing to see. If you go into their store in Hyderabad, we had an opportunity to go there a few months ago. It's truly a world-class experience that you walk into.
I think one of the earlier guests on our show was the Anand Sweets founder in Bangalore, and I think they've done a brilliant job at the packaging, like how you have. So I know that this kind of packaging is very expensive, and it increases the cost for the customer, and hence makes it tougher for you to sell. Is it a conscious choice to take that route, because this is really premium packaging? And how do you take that call of reducing the packaging cost, making it more affordable for the customer versus the other way around?
I think, how do I put it? At the end of the day, it had to be a different experience created for someone to pay the premium, right? Like, and if we were going to just package it in the same box, even though the product was different, that feel like we were talking about earlier, like when you open it at home on your own, or when you give a gift, that sort of emotion is not triggered. And the trigger for that emotion is, and I feel, the storytelling we do, not just through our content but through the packaging as well. And I think that two coming together is really important. So the call was actually very intuitive, and it didn't require any analysis. We were sure that this is the way to go. And what we've gotten better at over a period of time is, as we've scaled, has gotten more efficient at the way we do it. We work with some amazing partners who produce the packaging for us. So I think it's a learning curve, and we've learned how to get better at it over a period of time.
I think one anecdote which the founder of Anand shared with me was that probably Mithai is one category where even after it's been half consumed, it continues to be in the same box at the houses. And even when the guests come, you sometimes serve it in no other food category you use the restaurant's packaging, but Mithai continues to be that. So it very well may look better than other packaging.
And I think it's also now in the digital world, how else do you also stand out, right? Because like for almost 2 years, 2021, 22, we were only available on our website. Like people were barely coming into
Yeah.
stores at that point. And I think the packaging made a huge difference in terms of speaking to someone on a screen in the hand.
Yeah. And I noticed that you have a movie tie-in or a show tie-in with Amazon Prime. I think it's Mirzapur, right?
Yeah.
So do you often do these things? Talk us to about this.
We do.
this thing.
I think
Yes.
partnerships is a great
Yeah.
way to sort of, for us to spread the word about what we're doing. Like we always say, like we want people to feel the magic of Mithai again.
Yeah.
So this is our second one. The first one we did with Netflix with the Archie's movie that came out.
Wow, you
last year.
did? Nice.
And then this is the second one where the show.
What was the product used for the Archies?
We actually created a whole range of products
Wow.
inspired by all the Archie characters,
Yeah.
right? Like we've grown up reading that,
Yes,
so it was
yes.
very nostalgic. The whole feeling of the packaging, the way we sort of created the store experience,
Yes,
etc.,
yes.
was very much rooted in nostalgia.
Nice.
And here, I think I'm a fan of the show.
Yeah,
So when
brilliant.
when we started talking, it was like fun. They reached out to us saying, "Can you recreate something that is Mirzapur ki barfi?" And that's kind of what led to the Kaju Katli and the dark
Yeah,
chocolate
yeah.
ganache coming together, and
Brilliant.
it led to Indie Bites. And
Yeah.
I think that's
So you'll
what.
continue the product post the show as well?
Yeah, we'll continue to post the show as well because I think it's got a great response. It's just been 5-6 days old.
Yeah,
but,
I'm sure.
I
With
think
the
for
show
us,
getting momentum, the product
Yeah.
will also do well.
and for us, like chocolate actually is very interesting. Where chocolate represents like our generation's
Yeah.
sort of drug of choice, if I can call it
Yes,
that.
yes, yes.
But like the combination of that with Mithai, so we do a 3-layer chocolate fudge, which is inspired by a Lonavala fudge.
Yeah, of course.
We do the indie bar, which is imagine Twix meets 5-star meets Bounty, but the base
It has caramel?
It has caramel, it has coconut, but it also the base is not biscuit, it's patisa,
Ah, nice.
and then it's dipped in chocolate and sort of the indie bar as we call it. So
What's your personal favorite from your collection?
actually the indie bar is
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think
top.
I love the Bombay Bhel Chikki. It is
Yeah,
an
that's a-
extremely,
that-
extremely innovative product. I
Exactly.
think it's amazing.
Yeah, I think all of it. We talk about a lot about form and flavor, right? Like
Yeah.
when you're innovating, you can either get someone and to love it through the
Yeah.
flavor, and the form can be really interesting, or the form is something familiar and the flavor is very different.
Yeah.
So we play around with both. So the gulab jamun churros, for example, has a really great flavor.
Is that also sold on the website or it's a fresh product?
It's a fresh product.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you usually get it on Swiggy, on Zomato,
of course.
or obviously in our
Yes,
stores.
yes.
And Chef Girish came up with this batter which tastes like gulab jamun, but it's fried like a churro. So
Yeah.
with a pistachio and white chocolate dipping sauce
Wow.
and a vanilla
Wow.
dipping sauce. So all of it is to create that excitement that people really, really want to look forward to.
Yeah, and of all the, maybe not answer this question, but of all the brands that you've created, which is your favorite brand?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think
Or where do you order most from?
actually Veronica's these days.
Nice.
Actually,
Maybe the recency
yeah,
then.
exactly.
Brilliant. Thanks, Amit. Thanks for your time.
Thank
We
you
had a
for having
lovely chat here, and I'd love to try some products as we go.
Awesome.
But all the best with your new stores coming up. And
Thank you.
I think this new partnership looks very, very interesting. I am a fan of the show, and I'll definitely try this new barfi.
Awesome.
Thanks. All the best. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.